Hi, welcome back to Cross Stitch in Time. So we're going to first, we talked about doing this as a 4x6 design, but I think we'll go ahead and trim it to a 4x4.5, and then you can always use a mat if you need to. So I'm gonna go over 4 inches. And then really I can just kind of eyeball this, but you might want to hold the ruler there when you make your first cut. It doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to choose this line here. And so then we're just going to cut right along those stitches to trim our piece shorter and easier to work with. Okay, then I need to know, we want to make this one be about 4.5. And I'm really just going to eyeball that and cut about right there. And then I'm going to make that corner nice and even. All right, and then we've got our piece where we're going to make our egg. So then I have extra fabric that we can use for future projects. So let me go ahead and turn that back around. And I'm going to show you how to start. So this is, we're going to do the multicolored design, and we're going to start with the pink color at the top. So I'm going to grab this pink, and this is the first time I'm using this color. So I'm just going to pull it out one length of the floss, and that's about the length that I usually sew with. Now, when you have your thread or your floss, it comes with 6 strands. And so the first thing we're going to do, this is already wanting to do that, is separate it into 2 strands that we sew with. So I'm going to pull just those 2 away from the other 6 that are part of the floss. Letting it twist like that is the easiest way to not get tangled. And then I'm going to go ahead and trim that. Really should be using my floss scissors on this one. All right, so here's the piece we're going to start with, and we're going to thread the needle. All right, and then you usually want to pull this a good ways down. You want to have some of your floss that's not doubled, but you want to have it doubled a little bit, and that's what you'll start with. Okay, so with this, we don't want to sew with these needles sticking out at us, so let's go ahead and just make where our edges are. And so I'm going to put, this is our line across, and I just found that same line in the middle. And I'm going to put this pin in to go across. And then I'm going to grab another one, do the same thing on each end. This is going to mark our 4 sides. That was the second one. Here we go. It's our 3rd side. This would be the bottom.
And make sure y'all are being very careful with these, because a lot of times they are very sharp on the ends.
And here we want to go with our last one. All right, once I've done that, then I can pull out these 4 that we're marking my corners, so that way when we start stitching, we're not going to have anything poking us from underneath. All right, now that marks my 24 across here and then my 31 down here. All right, so then we go to our pattern, and counted cross stitch is named that way because of all the counting involved. We already had to count to get started, but here we're going to need to count on our pattern how many squares over to get to this first stitch that we want to make. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So it's 8 stitches over, or 8 X's over from the left side, and then I want to count how far across am I going to be going, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm going to be doing 8 across after I go 8 over from the side here. So that tells me where to get started. So I use my needle for this, and I know that this was my first one, so I don't count that one. You actually count 1 over from it. So this is 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And I actually usually count that from the top. It's easier than counting from the bottom, but because of the video, I wanted you to be able to see that. So now I'm 8 over from the side, and I'm going to start, you always start your X at the bottom. Okay, but I'm in the wrong position. I need to move this up to the top. We need to go up right here. Because remember, we marked this as our top line. You start your X at the bottom left and you go to the top right. So I'm gonna have to go ahead and pull this one out to start sewing, but I know that I'm in the right position. And I'm gonna pull my thread through, but we're gonna leave some of this. You're gonna watch what you're doing on the back. We have to leave some of this behind, and we're actually gonna stitch over this, maybe a little less, about like that. We're gonna stitch our first stitches over that and catch the thread, and that's how we start it, rather than putting a knot. That way it'll lay nice and flat. So now we're gonna go from the bottom left to the top right, and I'm gonna watch and make sure I'm pulling here. I'm holding that thread underneath, but I also want to watch at the top that I made a nice neat stitch there. Then I want to go catch that, and I want to catch it here. This is the bottom right. So I'm going to stick my needle in, and then I'm going to hold this and move my thread over. Now I can pull my needle here and hold that, and I want to catch that first thread with my first stitch, so it stays nice and tight. You can see that. Okay, then instead of actually making our first X, we're going to make all half stitches, which is we're just doing the first part of the X until we do 8 across. Then we'll go back and cross all 8 of them. So we'll go here, top right. And if these are getting in your way as you start sewing the pins on the side, once we put this top stitch in and now we know where we've started, we can actually pull all of these guide pins out, because we really don't need those anymore once we know where our first stitch is. So I'm going to pull this through and cross over the thread that I pulled through. So that's my second stitch. Then we're going to go again here for 3, catching my thread again. This is 4. 5.